Visits to planet Earth by alien spacecraft. That's a big story.
I know what I saw, but I can't explain what I saw.
If it wasn't a flying saucer, what was it?
Strange days indeed.
Program 227 of These Strange Days Indeed. And this is the time when we meander out to Winnipeg, Manitoba, where Chris Rutkowski, who's trained as an astronomer and has been studying reports of UFOs since the mid-1970s. And
I always seem to be interested in what's out there. Why are we here? Is there life out there?
he publishes, along with Jeff Dittman, the Canadian UFO Survey.
Chris Rutkowski is a scientist hooked on UFOs. His annual survey, released every February, is one of the most detailed UFO studies in the world.
So what's been happening with the Canadian UFO Survey?
Over the past 5 years, since 1998, we're up 250%. 10% of the population believe they've seen UFOs. If 10% of the population are having these experiences and we are not entirely sure what it is they're seeing, to me that's of concern and should be of concern.
Rutkowski's passion for UFOs makes him the country's chief investigator, the one man collecting data on all UFO sightings in Canada and investigating the unsolved ones, or X-Files.
Well, people have compared me to the real-life Fox Mulder, and I suppose in some ways I am. I mean, I do receive some government reports. I do investigate some fascinating and bizarre cases.
Driven to uncover the truth about UFOs, Rutkowski travels to New Brunswick, where there's been several reports of unusual sightings.
It was approximately about that high over the trees.
Donna Wilbur, her daughter Amy, and her friend Tanya are still spooked by what they saw in the sky last week at 2 o'clock in the morning.
It was moving in a diagonal, slanting down towards the trees. It was going slow.
You watched it for like how long were you watching?
Probably 3 minutes, just myself watching it.
I looked out the window and it was just this big orange ball, big circle, and I was thinking, that looks like the moon, and I just kept thinking, it has to be the moon, but then I realized that the moon isn't full and that it's over there.
I'd prefer if people looked at me as a serious and down-to-earth researcher of unusual phenomena. Did you see any things sticking out or inside?
The bottom edge was a darker color than the rest of it. It was like a brownish orange.
It was just sort of a glow, like it didn't give off any light at all, even though it was so bright.
I'm not necessarily saying the Martians are coming, the Martians are coming.
When it got behind the trees, like after about 7 minutes, we were watching for a long time, it stopped when it was in the trees. It stopped for 20 seconds about, and then it just went down.
It sunk.
It sunk.
Okay. What I'm saying is people are seeing some unusual things, and it's time for us to take a closer look at what has been reported.
It was like very eerie. Very, very eerie.
This is the second time Donna Wilbur has seen a UFO. The first was 30 years ago as a teenager growing up in nearby Cape Breton.
There was a crowd of us, probably 13, 14, and all of a sudden, over our heads was a huge object. And if I had put my arm up 2 lengths, you could probably touch it. That's how close it was.
Scientists in general tend not to look upon UFOs as a topic worthy of study.
It stayed there for a few seconds, and it made no noise.
I mean, this is a subject that has really captured the imagination of the world.
It was definitely saucer-shaped. It had 2 rows of lights.
Science as a whole should be more responsible in looking at the phenomenon of UFOs.
We're dealing with the biggest story of the millennium.
Well, it was so bright and so fast that no idea what it was.
On the line with us is the gatherer and co-editor of the Canadian UFO Survey, Chris Rutkowski.
Good evening, Earl.
Astronomer Chris Rutkowski is a scientist with an unusual goal: collect enough data on UFO sightings to solve what he considers the greatest mystery of all time.
We're looking at what, close to 5,000 sightings a year here in Canada.
There probably were 5,000 UFOs seen last year.
I want to know the solution to this particularly interesting puzzle, because I don't think we have any puzzles of such importance, because it's affecting so many people. And since every sighting has about 2 witnesses, that means that 10,000 people in Canada saw UFOs last year.
So you were just out there in Smithers, British Columbia, right? One of the major hotspots in Canada for UFO sightings.
Northern BC is practically the UFO capital of Canada. There are just so many cases being reported up there and so many people seeing things that I look forward to trying to solve the mystery and see what's really going on up there. Well, the data is analyzed in terms of frequency, how many in Manitoba versus Ontario, what colors are most prominent, most common, how many witnesses are there per case, what are the shapes that are being reported, how many have an explanation, how many appear to be something else. Approximately 5 to 10% of UFO cases can't be explained. It's such a matter of debate that I want to find out myself. I'm going to continue investigating and studying until I get some answers. In some ways, I'm a detective. I'm trying to piece together the pieces of the puzzle in order to understand the mystery of what people are reporting. If what they're reporting is true, then we have a very strange and baffling phenomenon that's occurring every day somewhere in this country. Perhaps it's the greatest mystery. It's the solution of this mystery that keeps me motivated, that keeps me going. I want to know what it is that people are experiencing.
Hey, how's it going? Good to meet you, buddy.
Meeting Chris Rutkowski is Brian Vike, a BC ufologist who fielded 1/5 of Canada's UFO reports this year.
There's been too many that I can't explain. And discussing the information with other ufologists across Canada, they can't come up with the answers either. So, you know, that's correct.
And that's what yours look like?
That's exactly what it looks like.
The 2 researchers analyzed many of the unexplained sightings, including an object seen by ufologist Brian Vike.
August 23rd, wife and I were sitting here watching television. I looked up and I watched going over top of that mountain, or pretty close to it. An amazing, amazing object.
Does it almost look like one of those type of comets, a big fuzzy contrail? But this videotape was taken from a lady just northwest of town here.
So you saw this, and then you had a call from somebody who said that she had taken a video.
Yes.
And then you had an email from these people who had emailed you a photograph, and all this happened on the same night.
It all happened on the same evening.
I mean, that's a little too, I don't know, detailed and too long of a time for a fireball or bolide. And it's not a comet, it's not a meteor.
There are many ways to check and see if people had mistaken things.
And the only possible thing is some sort of decaying rocket or something like that.
And it's possible to use this information to build up a list of what should have been seen in the sky and compare it with what was seen in the sky.
Because there was a satellite re-entry that night, perhaps about that same time, and we had such excellent observations on it, maybe that's what it was. Just like this is 45 minutes later.
This
the
is 45
same
minutes
person,
same person,
same camera, same type of direction,
same location, everything.
So in the space of 45 minutes, she videoed 2 separate, unusual objects.
Exactly.
The problem is that this thing had come up and circled back again. That's not consistent with a satellite re-entry.
I've never seen a UFO. I'd like to know what the fuss is all about. What is it that people are seeing when they're seeing UFOs? Let one land right in front of me someday. For me, it's not over until I've solved the mystery, and there's a lot of mystery out there.
All of a sudden, bang, it was just right over us.
It was just a massive ball of light.
Okay, Chris Rutkowski out there in Winnipeg, Manitoba with the latest results. The UFO sighting reports are on the increase.
The point is there are UFO sightings going on all the time. And the reports, in most cases, we hope, do manage to make it to researchers who are taking these things quite seriously.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So lights flashed on and off, disappeared, then flashed again. An object resembling an aircraft landing light, no planes in the area.
It was just a massive ball of light.
The thing is with these fireballs, they're like 150 miles up.
It's difficult to say why there would be such a profound increase over the past, let's say, 5 years. And that's why we have to look at this data with some care in order to really understand what's going on.
That was like just 2 hours later.
Yes.
So something was occurring between Smithers and Houston on this road early in February.
In February the 1st, Friday night, and continued on from, several reports came in of people seeing all kinds of stuff happening. Sometimes I'm lucky and I do get to solve some of these cases, but in the majority of these cases this year, completely unknown. Completely unknown.
Investigating the many unexplained UFO sightings here, Rutkowski and Vike dig for clues in BC's Telkwa Mountains.
So when it's pitch black like that, if there's a light on that ridge up there, some people might say, well, it's in the sky or something like that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, especially with all the mountains, and if you have a low cloud ceiling, it's going to be very dark here.
I think there's a greater acceptance of aliens and UFOs in our culture today. And because of that, people appear to be a little more willing to come forward with their UFO experiences. And this includes pilots, air traffic controllers, RCMP, and so forth. And we didn't really see that in as great numbers anymore. So we're starting to see a trend that it's no longer fashionable to ridicule people who've seen UFOs because they're so common, because they're seen by so many people in all walks of life. If UFOs really are trivial, if they really don't exist, what is it that people are seeing? Why do people continue to report seeing unusual objects in the sky that don't appear to be conventional objects? I want to know, personally, what it is that people are seeing.
Hello, Gordon.
Hi there.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello, baby.
Good.
Hi.
Good to see you again. Good. Chris Rutkowski?
Hi, Chris.
Flown in from Manitoba to have a visit.
Well, I was sitting there watching TV, and of course my 2 living room windows are directly behind the TV set. And
Gordon Stewart is one of the many residents who have seen a mysterious glowing ball blazing through the mountains.
well, if I'd have blinked, I'd have missed it.
And it went right through the valley.
It's going so fast.
Fairly low, though.
Oh yeah, right down in the valley, level with the house here. I'm at 3,000 feet here.
What were you doing?
Watching TV, look, when something went past those windows, this bright orange light going past.
Oh, shit, what was
I jumped out of my chair and ran to the door there and ran outside. Well, it was so bright and so fast that no idea what it was. And I couldn't hear nothing. It was just dead quiet. This was almost as if it had some kind of an engine, or else it was traveling so fast it was glowing, or, it seems like, what, about 12, 15 people seen it that night that we know of.
Yeah, for sure.
So this was shaped like a ball with a flame coming out the back?
Yeah,
or was
like a ball with a big glow to it. I've seen lots of comets here. Lots of them, falling stars.
Falling shooting stars.
Comets and shooting stars and stuff. And they're always falling on an arc. And this thing was dead flat.
Yeah.
And then the next morning I told the wife about it, and she kind of looked at me and funny like, and a little smile, and I says, what's up? And she says, well, I seen the same thing about 3 months ago. She said, but I didn't want to tell you because I thought maybe you'd just think I was nuts or something.
Talking with the people and hearing the stories is important to me, and that's what drives me to go out there and talk to more and more people.
In their search for answers, Rutkowski and Vike investigate what was recently seen by 3 women late one night while driving between Smithers and Houston.
All of a sudden, bang, it was just right over us, just like that.
Paula Kettle and her passengers Vanessa Glame and Tracy Matthews are haunted by what they saw.
So I just sort of got a really quick look, and all I remember seeing was like lots of big orange square lights.
That's when I jumped up between the seats and I flipped my head over this way. And there's just all these square lights in a line up in the sky.
And you didn't hear anything?
No sound. The girls want me to pull over, and I said, not on your life, I'm moving.
Back in the good old days, people reported seeing flying saucers, disc-shaped objects with domes.
And we were like, is that a plane or is it? And we're like, well, yeah, but it's not moving. It can't be a plane. It's too big to be a plane.
It seems that the saucers have been replaced by triangles or something a little more exotic.
The square lights were like white lights, and on the end they were circle orange lights. And
the three women in BC, they were credible.
I know what I saw, but I can't explain what I saw.
They weren't seeking publicity.
We were just shaken up as though you've been shaken up. Can't believe what you just saw.
They were honestly puzzled by what they had seen.
It was so weird that if they weren't with me, if I had seen this by myself, I would never repeat it.
So I think the experience of the three women was quite remarkable.
Tracy was freaking. She was.
Yeah. I didn't sleep for a week.
Really panicky.
You didn't sleep for a week?
No, I didn't.
At this point, I don't have an explanation for it.
And 2 days later, I was at work, and this girl came in. She said that they had seen the exact same thing that Friday night. Something flew down in the river. Her husband ran, tried to go over to the river and see what it was, and when he got there, the thing just flew right up the side of the mountain.
That made it a real good case because there was, multiple witnesses who first seen it, and then someone backed their case up.
And I'm still funny about the sky. Still watch the sky all the time.
I do too.
I've investigated hundreds of UFO cases, talked to thousands of people, and have always been fascinated by what I've heard.
But can astronomer turned UFO investigator prove that aliens are real?
I think the aliens are here to quarantine us.
Here you are, year after year, putting out the survey, gathering all the numbers together, crunching those numbers.
But the foundation of all of ufology are the sightings themselves, and unless you actually have good data and examine the data in some rigorous fashion, all of that speculation is really meaningless.
You can't be a normal, rational, thinking human being and look at all of this information and say, nah, there's nothing going on, because there definitely is.
Astronomer Chris Rutkowski is not the only scientist devoted to solving this mystery.
Hey, don't blame it on me. I don't have anything to do with the guys upstairs. Yeah. Just the guys that come down.
Nuclear physicist Stan Friedman shares Rutkowski's obsession with exposing the truth about UFOs.
And so there were three witnesses, looked out the bedroom window, saw a hazy orange glow.
Rutkowski analyzes his data with Friedman, who's worked on many top-secret U.S. rocket programs and has been investigating UFOs for over 30 years.
Well, it's a code word, top-secret code word.
Dubbed the flying saucer physicist, Friedman is an authority on government UFO files, the Roswell crash of 1947, and several famous UFO abduction cases.
I'm looking at the residue, the stuff that gets through after it's been looked at by competent investigators.
Well, there obviously are some secrets here when you see these whited out and blacked out documents.
Can you read what's under the whiteout?
All the UFO experiences are labeled as crazies, or they're imagining things. But these guys have never, ever gone out and done any solid investigation themselves, and not in the way that the Chris Rutkowskis and the Stan Friedmans and the Brian Vikes out on the West Coast have done.
One of the most fascinating cases I was involved with was the Stefan Mihalik case, Falcon Lake, 1967. This was a very, very fascinating case. It was investigated by the United States Air Force, the Canadian military, the RCMP, and the conclusion that was reached is that it was unexplained, unknown, where a fellow was burned by what appeared to be a flying saucer out in the white shell, and this took off again, leaving him singed on the chest, second-degree burns. If it wasn't a flying saucer, what was it?
The evidence is overwhelming that planet Earth is being visited by intelligently controlled extraterrestrial spacecraft. Several aircraft went up after the UFO that they'd seen on radar, and a smaller number came back. The subject of flying saucers represents a kind of cosmic Watergate. So don't tell me
that there's no cover-up whatsoever.
There is a cover-up. It means some few people have known since at least July 1947 when at least two crash saucers were recovered in New Mexico.
Taken by a naval photographer
with a whole bunch of other people there at the same time. Yeah. We're dealing with the biggest story of the millennium. Visits to planet Earth by alien spacecraft. Successful cover-up of the best data, bodies, and wreckage since 1947.
I've had people come to my office and tell me in private that they had been abducted by aliens. I've had a military officer come into my office and very cautiously tell me his story about encounters with aliens because he couldn't tell his commanding officer because this is not the type of thing you tell your commanding officer.
It's a very impressive collection of information that clearly states, hey, some of these things are real and alien, and governments do know what's going on.
I've had a nurse come to me with a fascinating story of an encounter with round-headed, robed alien creatures, apparently standing right in her own apartment. And she said to me, she's pleading with me, she says, I don't know what this was. You have to listen to me. I'm not making it up. This wasn't a dream. I don't normally dream like this. And yet, I'm sure that I saw this right in my own home.
I've never seen anything I would consider to be a flying saucer, but remember, I chased neutrons and gamma rays for 14 years, never saw one of them. I've never even seen Tokyo. It's there, you know. We depend on other people's testimony for most of what we know about the world we live in.
I think the mystery is going to continue on for some time. I don't think we're that close to a solution yet. But when it's resolved, I think perhaps we will find that we're not alone in this universe.
Thanks again, Chris.
Okay.
Talk to you next month.
Next month.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
To report a UFO sighting in this here province, 416-242-4161.